In this video, I'm going to talk about using Google Analytics site search terms to try to understand what it is that the visitors to your site want. It's part 3, the final part of a presentation I made to ScreenPage's customers in September 2010.
I've spent a lot of time on that because, as I say, that's my favourite source of insight. That's the one I would stick with if I had to choose just one. But don't forget the stuff that you already have, such as Google Analytics. That's on your site, and in there are two places where you can see the words that customers actually type. So these are the two places in Google Analytics where you're actually seeing the voice of the customer's language. One of them is the inbound search traffic, the traffic coming from the search words. You probably know about these keywords because a lot of people work very heavily with this stuff because they spend money on it. But one of the things that's important here is you'll typically be thinking in terms of the words that you're bidding on and so on. What you want to look at here are the actual phrases that people are using, the context in which they use those words, because again, you can learn a lot by understanding that language and making sure that you align the language of your site with those phrases, because that way you preserve what they call the scent of the search from the results page all the way through to the site itself. You need actually to look in two places to get this data. One of them is for the non-paid traffic. Just go to the Traffic Sources Keywords report and click on non-paid. You must look only for the non-paid there. Then you get a list of the keywords and you can make use of that data. For AdWords, it's slightly different. You have to go to Traffic Sources AdWords and the Keywords report, and then drop down this little menu that I'm showing up, that I've got sort of highlighted on the screen there, because the default within AdWords is to show what they call the keyword, which is actually the word that you're bidding on. What you want to see for this exercise is the actual phrase that the person was typing into Google that triggered that match. So the thing that you want to be looking at is what Google call the matched search query, because that's where you're getting the actual language of the customer. I don't want to spend too much time on that because the better source of information on what the customers have to say in Google Analytics is the thing called on-site search terms. These are the words that your customers use when they were typing into the search system within your site. So this is far more interesting. The first thing I would do here is go and look at the actual terms in use. So go to these reports are in the content report, site search terms. There you'll just see the list in sending order of the words that were searched for. What you may find there are at least two common things going on. One is people are searching for things because the language you use on your site isn't quite the same as the language they use. Your industry, you're using industry-specific jargon and you're describing products in terms which you understand, which aren't the terms that the customer's using. So they're using their language to try and find the things because your navigation system and descriptions are based around your language. So obviously the quick fix there is to bring the language on the site into line with the language that the customers are using. The other thing to bear in mind here is once again you're going to see examples of people telling you effectively what products you should be selling. They came to your site, they were looking around it, they saw what type of thing you were selling, and they expected you to be selling something else, some specific item. Well, have a look at those. That's a great source of information. Once you've found an interesting word on there, you can drill down into it and then change the menu so that you're looking at the search navigation for that term. And that's going to tell you where it was in the site that they started searching for that. So that can be a great source of insight in terms of trying to organize the content and navigation, the categories of your site. But there is actually an even better way of doing that. For that approach, what I would do is I would use a slightly different report in the same area, which is the content site search start site search start pages. What I'd do there, you see, that now gives you a list of pages which will typically start with your home page, because whether or not somebody lands on the home page and instantly searches, if they start exploring the site, they quite frequently will end up coming back to the home page. And if they do, and they're getting more and more frustrated, it's that point that they'll start searching for something. But what you'll also see probably will be things like category pages, odd category pages showing up as having a lot of searching starting on there. When you find one of those, drill down into it and see what the term that was being searched for was. And what you will find there are typically, again, a couple of things going on. One of them will be your customers have got to this category page because they expect that product to be there, but it isn't. You've actually got it somewhere else. The simple fix there is to consider duplicating it in that category, moving it to that category, or using some cross-sell technology to make sure that it's available there. I mean, if a lot of significant number of people expect it to be there, provide a route from there to it. The other thing that you'll find which is slightly more puzzling is when you find people on a particular category page searching for the thing that is all over that category page. What that's telling you is probably two things. I mean, basically, they got to that page, it's full of the item in question, but they didn't recognize the fact that it was there. Typically what's going on there is if somebody's scanning in text mode, they're shopping for words, they're scanning for words, it's very, very common that our product descriptions on categories don't actually include the word that describes what the item is, because everything on that page is that. So typically they'll be down on a category page and you'll be having a product name there or a model number or something like that. Nothing to say what it actually is. The other problem that sometimes happens is that they're scanning visually and the product picture actually shows the product, but it's in context, or it's within a group shot or something like that. So although every picture on that page features this product, they can't see it. So in both cases there are fixes. I mean, obviously one of them is to get the relevant word into the description and the product name, which will give you a great SEO benefit. And the other thing is to look closely at your product pictures and ask yourself, if you didn't actually know what this was supposed to be, what would you say was in that product picture? What is it a picture of? So that's another example of how you can use the customer's language to provide you with clues about what to do. Right, we're nearly at the end of this presentation, so I'm going to throw in a slightly wildcard one. This I'm calling the "It's so cheap it's worth a try." There's this site called pickfu.com where you can ask a question, a sort of A-B question. You can put up 2 pictures, or you could provide 2 links, and you can ask people a question. Like in this case it says, which web page looks better? I've done ones where you say, which site would you choose to buy from? You give them $5, the princely sum of $5, and 50 people will go and answer that question. Now, the snag here is that, of course, these are 50 any old people, and most of them are in America. So you might say that this is a pretty pointless test. But actually, it's really quite a useful exercise. I reckon you could go outside the front door today at this building, stop the first 50 people and ask them a question about your website, show them a picture and ask them a question about it. If you stopped any 50 people at random, within 50 questions, you're bound to get some brainwave, some idea, some clue about something that's worth thinking about at least. So for $5 to get 50 people, even if they're pretty irrelevant to your site, to give an opinion on it, I suspect is worth a go. The main point being that we all get so close to our websites that we all assume we go blind, basically. So getting outsiders of any kind, whether they're real customers or testers, to give you some feedback on the site, it's like a mental exercise. It just wakes you up and gives you something to chew on and think about. The other thing to touch on very, very briefly, because Roger's going to be talking more about this later, is I've talked about what people are doing on your website. What are they saying about it out in the big wide world? You need to be monitoring all the buzz that's going on about your site. The free and easy way of doing this, but it's not particularly easy to use in analytical terms, is Google Alerts. Go and set up some Google Alerts for your website address, your brand names, your products, all that type of thing. And once a day, if you configure it, it'll send you an email listing all the blogs and websites that it's found new mentions of you on, and you can see what they're about. The snag with that is it's very good on blogs and websites. It's still not particularly good on things like Twitter and Facebook, though I dare say it's getting a lot better over time. The other way of doing it, if you're interested in those two in particular, would be to take one of the desktop tools, perhaps something like TweetDeck, and configure that with a search. So you've got a Twitter search going on on terms that are of importance to you, and see what they say. But if you are going to get serious in that area, I'm afraid at the moment you probably need to shell out a little bit of money, maybe quite a bit. There are a couple of companies that I've been recommended by friends to have a look at, but to be honest, I've used neither of them, but they're up on the screen there if you're interested, and perhaps Roger's going to talk some more about this later on. If not, we'll have to do another presentation on it at some point. My final point is, don't forget the other source of information you have, your contact centre. When I was last working full-time within a retailer as a PAYE employee, I had my desk in the contact centre, the call centre as we called it in those days. I was running the whole show, but I wanted to be based in there because it was the best way of keeping your finger on the pulse of what was going on with the customers. You would hear, albeit one side of the conversation unless you were specifically listening in, but it was great. You knew what was going on. So I would urge you to listen to your contact centre. Get them to send you a little summary once a week of what they think is important and what they think would make their life a lot easier if it was changed. And take them seriously and do it, and tell them that you're doing it, taking it seriously, because they again can feed it back to the customers and complete the circle. And that's it for me for today. There's my email address at the bottom. As I said at the beginning, I'm really happy to take questions by email or grab me afterwards, or whatever you wish. I live and breathe this stuff. I've been doing it for an awful long time, and I think to be honest, it really is the shortest cut to making improvements to your website. Thank you.